In Anxiety Toolkit Part 2, I'm going to help you to work out in what order you would like to attack your anxiety triggers. This video specifically follows on from Anxiety Toolkit Part 1, so if you haven't already seen that video, I'll put a link up in the top corner for you now, and you can go over, watch that video first and then come back to this one, otherwise this one isn't really going to make a great deal of sense. Okay, so now you have your mind map from Anxiety Toolkit Part 1, we can look at what we do with that and the next steps you need to take. The aim in this video is to help you to order your anxiety triggers so that you can identify which things are the most overwhelming and which things are the least overwhelming. In part 1, you will have gone through each item on your mind map and given it a score 1 to 10. 10 being the most anxiety inducing and 1 being the least. For the next part of the exercise, I want you to write out the same triggers but in numerical order so that you have the most challenging things at the top of your page and the least challenging things at the bottom of your page. I'm going to now include a photograph of my anxiety triggers from the first video, rewritten in numerical order. I believe that with anxiety, it's really, really important to take gentle and slow, safe steps in working through your anxiety triggers. If you jump in at the deep end and start attacking things that you've got with a 10 written next to them, chances are you're not going to have the internal emotional reserve to get the outcome that you want if this is the start of your journey. You might have a bad outcome or experience and that's going to dissuade you from wanting to work on it further. If we start, however, with the things at the bottom of the list, then the chances of a positive and successful outcome are far higher. Thus, you will feel you have accomplished something and that you are motivated that you can do it. It won't feel as difficult as you had thought it was going to. And you will have a really great foundation for believing in yourself. Referring back to my list, I have 2 items listed with a 1 against them. They are hanging out with people I trust and going to the cinema with people I trust. So for today's challenge, I'm going to take one of my number 1s, which is going to the cinema with someone I trust, for how to use the concept that I'm describing as Toolkit Part 2. Toolkit Part 2 is breaking down an anxiety trigger. Let me explain exactly how that works. So I want you to look at your diagram, identify which of the triggers had a lower score. So you might not have a 1 against anything. Whatever your lowest number is, they're the anxiety triggers that you're going to be working on, and I'm going to be working on the things with a 1 against them. So of those things, which one of those is the easiest for you to deal with? So if you have 4 things in your lowest number group, take the one out of that you think is the easiest, and that's going to be the thing you're going to focus on first. Right, let's take me going to the cinema with people I trust. Now, there is one person and one person alone where I can hang out with them and I never have a problem with my anxiety, and that's my boyfriend. That would be a 0 because that wouldn't affect me. So that instantly discounts him as part of this process because that's cheating. Effectively, I know I can manage that, so I don't need to put that as a thing to try to improve. What I know I can't manage as well is going to the cinema with any other person. I always have some degree of anxiety if I go with anybody other than him. So what I often do, which is a developed coping strategy, is to ask him to take me if I'm going with somebody else, or often he might come along, I'll go and see a film with someone else that I'd like to watch, and he'll go and see a film with somebody else that he'd like to watch. So I always keep him as part of that scenario because then I always feel safe. Now granted, this has helped improve my anxiety around going to the cinema with other people tremendously, so I can feel completely comfortable and safe in that situation. However, I know that ultimately that is not the complete desired outcome. The complete desired outcome is to be able to go to the cinema with somebody else and not have my partner involved in that process whatsoever. So therefore, my task for phase 1 of building my anxiety toolkit is to find a way to go to the cinema with somebody I trust, without my boyfriend present, and for it all to be okay. So having used my mind map and having broken it down into steps, I have now identified the thing that I have to work on first. How am I going to go about that? First of all, I'm going to make a list of all of the people that I could go to the cinema with. Then I'm going to think through which of those people are going to make me feel the safest if I do that. I.e., when is the anxiety least likely to occur if I'm with one of these people? Then I'm going to think about who's going to take us. Am I going to drive myself? Am I going to drive us? Are they going to drive us? Or are we going to meet there? Then I'm going to think about where do I want to park, so I can think that the walk from the car park to the cinema isn't going to be anxiety inducing. So perhaps I might park in a car park that I normally use when I go with my boyfriend, because that will be familiar. Or perhaps I might park in a car park where there are less people, because that would be less anxiety inducing. So that will vary for each person. So the reasons and the decisions behind which choices you're going to make. The next part of that process is to then think through, right, what other triggers might I encounter along the way? My local cinema is up a gigantic escalator, which takes probably a good minute to travel up. Will I meet the person outside of the cinema and travel up the escalator together and walk in with them, which is then another flight of stairs and then like where you queue and get your popcorn? Or will I meet the person at the popcorn counter? And obviously that would indicate that we hadn't come together if I was making those kind of choices. Or would I want to travel with them and then they would be there through that entire experience? I'd look at the things that might provoke me, like having to make conversation and feeling that my conversation is going to be good enough when we're hanging out and chatting in that free time before the movie begins. I'd look at the fact that I'm going to have to interact with people when I order my tickets and get my popcorn, and sometimes that can really fluster me. And then I'd think through what's going to happen at the end of the film. So are we going to be going straight from the cinema back to our car, or are we going to be going for a drink afterwards, or what's going to be happening at the end of the movie? Having given all of this some thought, I think the best thing for me to do is to tell my chosen friends that this is an experiment that I'm going to be trying, and say to them, I'm doing this for the first time. My boyfriend isn't going to be bringing me this time, which will be really unusual for them. That as part of this experiment, I only feel comfortable to go to the cinema, meet in the car park or meet in the foyer, watch the movie, and then head home again afterwards. I don't feel comfortable going for a drink just yet. That feels like too many challenges in the first instance. Trust the fact that I'm asking a friend, and know that by being really honest about what a big deal this is going to be, that they're not going to feel offended or bothered, or they're not going to mind one bit that I've said, can we literally just go and see a film and go home again? Because by doing that with me, they're going to be helping me overcome such a massive milestone that they're doing an enormous friendly thing for me. So I'm not shunning them going, I don't want to go for a drink with you afterwards, so you're only good enough to see a film, thanks a bunch, bye, see you later. They're going to be coming with me to help me get stronger as a human being. So I've set myself this personal task of going to the cinema without my chaperone that I normally take with me, and if I achieve that and if I enjoy that and I don't get all flustered and I don't get anxious, then oh my word, what an amazing night out I will have had, and that will build my confidence ready for the next time where I can go, maybe we can get a drink in the foyer at the cinema, and then maybe the time after that, maybe we can get a drink halfway up, like on the escalator there's a Frankie and Benny's and we could go in there for a drink, and then that would be okay. And then hey, you never know what, maybe in a couple of months time we'll be able to go out for dinner and go for a movie. Won't that be amazing? As you can see, the more you kind of play that through in your mind and think, right, what steps do I need to take and how can I do this really delicately and how can I make this okay for myself at every step and how can I have open dialogue with somebody that I really trust who can support me with this in a way that isn't my old coping strategy, that makes this challenge slightly more independent than the way I was doing it before, is going to move you on massively. You can also see that at a level 1 on the sheet, there is so much challenge around that. Therefore, you can see why I'm asking you not to even consider working on something that you would rate a 10 at this stage. So, by the end of this video, you should have definitely finished your mind map, ranked your anxiety triggers, chosen the trigger that is the easiest of them all to start to tackle, broken down that trigger into manageable chunks to think through all the little things that you'll need to prepare in order to attack it, formulated some kind of plan on how that is going to become a reality, and hopefully achieve the motivation to make that a possibility. If at this stage you have any questions surrounding your first exercise, then please put in the comments below and I can give you some additional motivation and support. If there are any particular areas that you're struggling on, then tell me and we'll come up with a plan together. Like I said, I am going to do this challenge with you and I'm going to work through my anxiety overhang with you whilst you work on yours. So you're going to go off and attack your first anxiety trigger whilst I go off and attack mine. So my first thing today is to find someone I can go to the cinema with and test this theory out. We'll do a follow-up video where I report back on how this has gone for me, and in the comments of that video or this one you can report back how this experiment has gone for you, and we're going to nail our anxiety. If you have liked this video, then give it a huge thumbs up. And if you want to follow along on the Anxiety Toolkit building process, then subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.